This one is about information. Do you treat information as a living material or as a static, prepackaged clinical product that is served up by your systems? The creative industries especially need data and information to flow organically with the enterprise to promote innovation, collaboration, and value creation. Pierre represents a case study where information systems and classifications are seen as a creative act. Drawing on experience from luxury brands such as Hermès, joining us from Paris, please give Pierre a very, very warm welcome.
So hello everyone, my name is Pierre-Édouard Martial. I have 16 years experience in the creative industry. My role in this industry was to manage the creative mindset and creative teams. And recently, I was facing a very big challenge for me. So thank you, Anna, because I was facing a very uncomfortable challenge because my role was to manage more and more tech and innovation in my day-to-day job. Because creative industry are facing a big challenge today. They are to transform themselves, and the connection between management and creative team is going to be key in the next years to make sure the creativity and the creative mindset of their brands can pursue. So one day, my boss told me that, okay, your new job is going to manage a dam. At first, I was no idea about what is a dam. So I search on internet and I say, okay, digital asset management. Okay. And hopefully I had one tool in my pocket. It was design. And I say, okay, I know how to deal with complexity thanks to design. So I took the design in my pocket and I say, okay, how can you help me to manage a dam in the creative industry? First, I had a look at some figures and I say, okay, creative industry, it's maybe like a museum or institutional organization. So I take a look at some figures and I discovered that even in this very institutional sector, the transformation and the digitalization of the creative asset is quite hard. So I say, okay, I'm not the only one to say that it's maybe hard to create connection between management and creative team through digital asset management. Because I was deeply convinced that in creative industry, archives are not just images. And my role was to define what is the essence of a creative strategy managed by a digital asset management. And here is a representation of my challenge. Because, of course, on the one hand, I was asking to create a very rigid structure to make sure that things are correctly arranged and foundable and usable by engineers. But in the other hand, my challenge was to create a safe place for creative people to get inspiration and to be sure that they can manage all the data of the company in their processing of creation. So my role was to try to define a bridge between a structure and a designing inspiration safe place for creative people. And today, I'm going to share with you some thoughts about how we can create a bridge between a structure and between inspiration. I truly believe that today, digital asset management projects in creative industry don't fall because of technology. Technology is quite strong. I'm not an engineer. This is not my part. And I truly believe that tech is good. But for me, they fail because of the taxonomy. Most of the time, the taxonomy was not created in collaboration with the creative team. It's something very rigid and not something very usable by some other kind of mindset, I mean creative people. And when I ask some specialists in other maisons, they said that, okay, data in creative industry has to reflect the mindset of the maison. So I clearly understood at this point that my role was not to create a structure for neat folders. It's not my part. But it's about to design meaning and access and design a bridge between, like I said, structure and inspiration. And for example, Marie-Hélène Percy, who is in charge of the optimization of data at Dior Couture, said to me that at Dior, we have a specific blue, the blue Dior, but it's not the same in Dior like in other maisons. And she said that it was quite difficult for me to find a way to classify the specific color at Dior is not the same in other maisons. So it's about designing meaning access, but also designing singularity. And it was quite clear that a digital asset management in this kind of activity has to reflect also the history and the singularity of the maison. And it's quite a challenge. And I want to share with you three thoughts that I want to present you. And I think that there can be some good path to design a digital asset management in creative industry. The first one, I think it's we have to think about digital asset management through sensitivity and situated meanings. Because the users of this kind of tools are deeply attached with real world and concrete world. I mean material, process, memory, and emotion. So for sure, the job is not just to store files, but it's to store textures, gestures, and stories. And of course, it's quite easy to just store an image, but how we can store a texture, a gesture, or a story? How difficult it is to find the perfect storage for this kind of specific asset management, digital assets. And I'm quite convinced that we have to connect the digital assets with the real world. And for example, in digital asset management, in creative industry, you have images of materials. But I have some experiences that prove that just storing images of materials fails. Why? Because the users, the creative community, has to be in touch with the materiality. So if you have a material digital asset management with Materiotech, for example, you have to create also a real physics booth or real physics place to make link between the digital asset management and the physical space. Also, you have to create stories between the way that you are going to organize the different folders on your asset management with, for example, places, person. You have to create a storytelling to help the creative people to navigate in the digital asset management tool. Because for us, the storage is not just about folders, but it's about histories, it's about gestures, and it's about creative processing. And one good example is Materio. Materio is a database that helps creative people to find new materials. And I think it's quite a good example to see how we can create a sensible database that can help creative people to get in touch with materiality. It's not just a database, it's a platform that helps creative mindset to navigate through materiality, and it helps them to discover new things through their eyes. And I think that the most challenging part of my job today is to create a link between a creative mindset and an engineer mindset, and to bring all the challenge of the both public to create something new. And I was quite inspired by Materio. The second belief that I have in mind to be sure that your digital asset management will be a success is to add human in the digital asset management system. And I truly believe that human mediation is not optional when you are dealing with digital asset management in creative industry. It's the key, and sometimes it's an interface in itself. Because I do believe that the taxonomy can work alone. And I'm sure that some new type of profile has to be created to make the link between creative mindset and digital asset management. People to guide in the complexity of the digital asset management. And I like to think that in the future, we are going to have like DAM curator, people that will help the people to navigate through the complexity of a dam and helping them to find the perfect information they need. Keep time also to train. I was quite surprised to discover that in most of companies, the dam is just a link in your onboarding program, and you don't have people explaining you how to navigate into the dam. So keep time for training and create also a culture of care. Take care of the people you need to go through this particular complexity of dam, and pedagogy also needs to be done to embrace all the complexity of the dam and create the link between the structure and the experience. And I think that for me, it was the design that helped me to say, okay, before trying to build the structure, ask the users how they want to experiment and to navigate through digital asset management, how they want to access the whole history of the maison, and trying to understand the way they are thinking and not just plugging a solution already developed on the market, but develop a very specific tools for them. And here, let's meet Julia. She's a digital curator, sorry, at the British Museum. And it's quite interesting to see that new kind of curator today are clearly dealing with this particular challenge of new digital asset management. Because she demonstrates that because the digital world is changing every day, the type of assets that we are going to manage is evolving every day. So how we can create digital asset management more flexible, more innovative to integrate this new kind of digital assets in the structure. And this is my third belief. I think that a good digital asset management in creative industry has to integrate new virtual materiality and new type of assets. It's quite impressive to see that today, a digital asset management, from my point of view, is quite limited in the way that it can integrate new type of assets. I am struggling every day with, for example, 3D assets. How we can integrate the 3D asset on the digital asset management, how we can use it, how we can download it, how we can share it. It's quite a challenge. If you have some solution, I will be happy to hear that. Audio also assets. It's quite impressive to see that the audio archive today is quite a challenge for a digital asset management. How to transcript the audio, how to go through an audio archive today with precise indexation. And audio is becoming one of the most important assets for creative industry, also because it's an industry maybe ruled by discussion and informal discussion. And it's quite clear today that we have to create archives in audio to make sure that the history of the maison is still pursued. Of course, NFT, even if it's not so big today, it's a new type of asset that we had to integrate in the DAM. And I was asked recently to try find a solution to make archive of IA interaction. So it's a new type of assets and how we can integrate this kind of assets in the digital asset management. Here there is an example of the Forney Museum in Paris, and I think it's a good example of how they succeed in creating a way to go through materiality. Thanks to different type of tools, you can enter in the materiality of the texture, and you don't have the same experience like in the real world, but it's from my perspective, a good example of how digital asset management has to shift to be able to create an experience maybe like in real world. So I think that for me, materiality may be the answer of the mess and maybe the answer to create a good digital asset management strategy in creative industry. I truly believe that, for example, we talk a lot about cloud, but okay, it's obvious, very important to have your assets in the cloud, but make sure you have a localization, a physical place to relate it, all the data that you have in a cloud, but in a physical place, to make sure that people can interact with the materiality of the data. Digital and materiality, like I said, I think we have to create link between the digital world and the materiality. And the big challenge is to how we can store, manage, and structure a materiality, which is not very easy. Technology and people, I think that we have to create boundaries between human and technology, and DAM is a good example. And make sure that you're not storing folders, but stories. And I think this could be 3 good points to create good digital asset management strategy in creative industry. Key feedbacks, I think that I'm sure that we have to create an alignment with real life and usage, like I said. Make sure that you share the vocabulary and the naming logic with final users. Like I said, taxonomy has to be a collaborative work. The main challenge, I think, is to create not rigid hierarchies, but to design flexible digital asset management and set up a collaborative governance through data, which is not easy. But I truly believe that information has to be considered as a living material. Why? Because I think that without physical connection, information is not power enough. I think that a good information is a humanized information. And I think that why it's a living material, because it's evolving every day. And we have to keep in mind that the assets that we are going to archive in the future is not already exist. And we have to be very flexible about this structure. So DAM is not so easy.